welcome to the 18th episode of the Formula E Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jack George Maynor, and we'll be talking everything about a crazy Santiago E-Prix. With me today to discuss the third round of the championship is the one and only Tobias Bloom from E4MLD. Welcome back, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! How are you?
I'm very well. It's been a great start to the year, and we've had a great race already to kick us off for the rest of the campaign. So a lot to talk about tonight.
Oh, a lot to talk about. So much going on in Chile.
No, for sure. There was so much to talk about, and I can't wait to get on to it. But first and foremost, we have a really important announcement to make. So just a few Patreon updates, basically. Just a massive thank you to Daniel Milford and Sean Johnson, who have become patrons to the podcast and are helping supporting us. And I can't say how much I appreciate, and obviously Tobias and everyone at Formula E Zone appreciates your support. It's a massive plus for us in terms of knowing that you guys enjoyed what we're doing, and we want to keep improving our content, of course, to try and make sure that as many people like it as possible. But your support so far has been admirable, so a massive thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I think, Tobias, we just need to get straight into it, okay? Because there's just so much to discuss. There's no point beating around the bush. So we've got to start with qualifying, because qualifying was pretty crazy. And we're going to start with qualifying Group 1, because straight out of the blocks, okay, we had an impact from Oliver Rowland and Lucas Di Grassi in the first group of qualifying. Just sum up just what happened.
Oh, madness happened. I think it all started in FP2 even. With a late crash in the second for a practice session. Barely anyone got a lap at 250 kilowatts in. I think Ollie Rowland was one of the few who managed to set a lap time in full power mode.
Yes, and it ended fastest.
But he was one of the ones who spun in qualifying. He didn't spin. He lost control over his car and slammed into the wall of turn 3, I guess. No, turn 5.
Yeah, but I think exit of turn 4-5. The same place where Ma did it hilariously in practice 2, which caused the red flag, which then caused everyone really not to get a qualifying simulation in.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where it started, with a Ma crash in FP2, and then Rowland losing it in qualifying Group 1. He was one of the few ones who managed to get a 250 kilowatt qualifying lap in before qualifying, so he was out of the run-in. And I think there was no driver who managed to get out of the first two...
No, not at all.
Or no driver out of the first two qualifying groups who managed to get into the Super Bowl shootout.
No, which was interesting, and I was actually quite surprised, and we'll talk about it in just a sec, of just how slow Group 1 and Group 2 were. Because obviously Group 1, we're sort of used to it with the dirty side of the track, but at the same time, they were saying that, Santiago wasn't as dirty as, say, Diriyah was. And I think you could see, yes, it had its leaves, right? But, if you look at Group 1, Lotterer was the first driver out, and that's like the curse. You never want to be the first driver out. But he wasn't the slowest driver in that group. And he was the first person sort of creating the cleaner line, in air quotes. So, yeah, I was actually quite surprised, because they were running about a mid 105 to high 15s, where in practice 2, we saw the quickest time being a mid 104. And when Group 2 went out, it was actually quite surprising that no one they were still in that mid 105 range, rather than like sort of bettering what Group 1 did, which we've seen consistently, I think, now through this qualifying format, that Group 2 are able to beat Group 1, or the majority of Group 2 are able to beat Group 1, with maybe some exceptions here and there. So it was quite surprising to see that. I thought that was interesting.
Yep, so did I. I think with Lotterer going out first... Lotterer going out first in qualifying 1 wasn't too much of an issue for him, because he took kind of an odd slot to go out. I think it's a matter of drivers, of course, kicking up the dust, and he went out in a slot in which he was, of course, the first one out, but then did his outlap, and all the other drivers came out at that point, so he had drivers still in front of him kicking up dust, and that might have helped him a bit with the grip. I think that was the reasoning behind Porsche's thinking there. But yeah, still didn't work out for him.
Andre started the race in 14th. In the end, he started in 14th.
Fair enough. Behind his teammate.
Which ain't bad. And it's about right for a Group 1 qualifier.
Absolutely, yeah.
So just the only interesting thing to mention, is obviously the Crassi crash, which happened not directly after Oliver Rowland, but it was sort of basically just after. Basically, he just avoided Rowland, was a bit annoyed, thinking there'd be a red flag, but there wasn't one, and he just completely locked up going into turn 9, lost the back end, and sort of nudged the wall, and that was his qualifying over, which was such a shame for Degrassi.
He got a bit too greedy, didn't he? I think he...
Yeah, for sure.
And he tweeted about it and shared an Instagram post about it. He just wanted too much after losing the time fighting, or not fighting with Rowland, but having to avoid the crashing Rowland. He just got greedy and wanted to make up the time he lost, and then lost control over his car going into turn 9, which is a really, really tricky corner anyway. And then if you're trying to make up time that you're not supposed to be making up in that corner, things go horribly wrong, and that's what happened to him.
I think turn 9 is one of the corners on that track where it's key to the lap time. Like, if you get it right, you can be super quick. I reckon you can shave quite a few tenths, because if you brake at the right time and get it in, stopped and out, you're going to gain time. If you brake too early for that corner, I feel like you're gonna lose time. You're gonna put time on the table. You probably could say that for any corner, but I really think turn 9 was one of those. So I can understand maybe why he thought, well, I've got to go for this one because, it's do or die. But I think a season 3 champion should know it's better just to post a time, because even if he hadn't have made that mistake, you never know. He might have started 16th. He might have started 15th. He could have had a time somewhere where he could have been midfield, not right at the back. So I think it's so hard to sort of critique a world-class driver, but at the same time, you're thinking maybe you should have realised not to go too hell for leather, just try and keep the car on the track, because track position in Formula E is everything.
Hindsight is a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It feels weird at the same time. But.
Yeah, but remember, you're in qualifying. You have to put everything on the line there, and it doesn't matter whether you're a season 3 champion or not. You want to qualify first or as far up the grid as possible, and I don't think any driver would think about, well, I've lost time in sector 1. I'll just have to finish the lap now. No, they still want to make up the time they lost. So yeah, fair enough.
No, I totally agree with you. And in the situation, I know I'd probably do the exact same as Lucas Degrassi, because you're trying to fight to get as many temps back as possible, and it just didn't work out for him. And on other days, you never know, he might have lost a couple temps, and then we've seen Mega Sector 2s and Mega Sector 3s where you're like, oh, they pulled it out the bag, and you're like, wow. And that's the thrill of qualifying, when they actually, they do bite the cherry a little bit too hard, and sometimes they get away with it. But this time for Degrassi, he didn't. So moving on to Group 2, because Group 2 was just as eventful as Group 1, with Robin Freins. Now, Robin Freins just doing Robin Freins things, and I probably said Robin Freins way too many times. But man, that spin at turn 1, and he didn't hit anything. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, lucky guy. That was a matter of inches, I think. He locked the rears going into turn 1, which was a new redesigned reprofiled left-hander, then leading into a right kink before joining the old circuit with the turn 3 attack mode and all of that. And drivers were trying to straight line turns 1 and 2 as much as possible, especially Andre Lotterer was one of the ones who visibly took a different line compared to all his competitors. And I think Freins also went for it, tried to brake as late as possible, and then, the usual Formula E mistake, locked the rears, happens, and lost control over his car going into the first corner, and then spun round and slid just inches away from the wall back onto the circuit, blocked Edo Mortara at the point, who was driving right behind him. Yet Edo managed to set the quickest lap time in qualifying too, and almost made his way into Superpole. But that was a really impressive lap from the Venturi driver as well. But yeah, arguably France spinning, Edo having to avoid him, then going on to set the quickest lap. One of the moments of the qualifying session. Had it not been for one driver, from the beautiful United Kingdom, starting in qualifying Group 4 by the name of Ollie Turvey.
This was just wow.
What about him?
This was a wow moment, and not much is said about Oliver Turvey, and you'd feel like at a drop of a hat, if Neo were to go bust, or if they didn't take him on for next season, I feel like Oliver Turvey wouldn't have a seat in Formula E for the following season for whatever reason, right? I think he's just a man that goes under the radar, but time and time again, he outperforms the car. You have to remember, he is running a Season 5 Dragon Racing powertrain, and that powertrain itself wasn't very good last season. And he's gone and he put that in the top 5 in Group 4 in a car that in testing was like a second a lap slower. It was mighty, and I said in a tweet, I was like, put that man in a Tech Cheetah or a BMW, and I stand by that. Because if he had a car that was capable of winning races or fighting for a podium, like a Jaguar, for example, like with Mitch Evans, he'd be there. I'm sure of it. Like, it just blows my mind how Oliver Turvey is one of those men who's considered such a really good Formula E driver, but has never really... Neo has gone up and down, and it seems to be on a proper downward spiral at the moment.
Especially down, yeah.
Yeah. And no one's gone, you know what, Oliver, we'll take you. I just find it crazy.
Yeah. He's a spectacular driver. He's always been, as you say, outperforming his car. And he's been on pole before in I think the team was called Next EV back then. It wasn't Neo, but it was Next EV Neo. So the predecessor of the current team. And then...
The many predecessors.
One of the many. Yeah, but really impressive job. Yeah, nothing to add to that. Just outright amazing lap.
And to just harp on about Eduardo Mortara, just quickly, just to wrap that bit up, it was hilarious on the team radio where he was like, no way, you're lying. How am I first? I just had to brake and avoid Robin Friends. How have I just put the quickest time? And you're right, he just missed out on Superpole starting 7th. So credit for him. I thought another team that I wanted to do a special shout out for qualifying before we move on to the race was Venturi, because obviously Eduardo Mortara is part of the Venturi team, and Felipe Massa also managed to creep in, well, didn't really creep into Superpole, qualified 4th in total. I think this change for Venturi to actually go to the Mercedes powertrain has actually been a stroke of genius, probably by Susie Wolff. It probably made sense. But their performances so far this season, even in FP2 in Santiago, they were quick, and they backed that up in qualifying.
Yeah, you would think that Venturi being a really, or not a really small team, but a reasonably small team, certainly not as big as the big OEMs like Porsche and Mercedes and all of them. Venturi is a reasonably small privateer team with a customer powertrain, yet they still managed to squeeze out those good results. We've seen them being really, really competitive in Saudi as well, and now them qualifying in 4th and race 4th. Oh. Two thoughts at the same time. Qualifying 4th and 7th and finishing the race.
You got it.
Well, 9th, and where did the other Venturi? Well, he didn't cross the line, P21, yeah. But being competitive for most of the race, although the race result doesn't show their competitiveness. Really impressive job by them, and I think we will have to expect a Venturi podium at some point in the year. Not that I'm trying to jinx anything, for sure. But yeah, I think there's a possibility of them getting a podium this year.
If they don't try and crash into each other and they, keep it... Formula E is all about having a clean race, and Santiago was nowhere near a clean race. And trying to get a clean race in Formula E is pivotal to success. And I think that's what Venturi... If Venturi were to have a clean race, and if they had a clean race in Santiago, it was double points finish. Could have been a double top 5 finish. It was looking there, or at least both 2 cars in the top 6. Like, they had pace, and I feel like, they've shown it at times in previous seasons. Like, they weren't a team. They had their days, like they had their moments, like Hong Kong. For some reason, the Venturi car used to love Hong Kong. They're probably gutted that we're not going to Hong Kong this season because it just lit up at Hong Kong. But then you'd go to another track and you're like, they won the last race. Mortara did win a race. He did, by default, technically, he did win the Hong Kong E-Prix last year. And, but then you'd turn up to the next race. You're like, where did that Venturi pace go? So this season with the Mercedes powertrain, it just looks a little bit more together for them. So, if they can keep it clean, because they've got two drivers who are experienced enough to keep it clean, they could upset a few of the big OEMs this season for sure.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, it's still a long year ahead. So many things and so many variables will play into success, as they do in Formula E, but I think if Venturi keep developing like they are currently doing, their time will come soon enough.
Yeah, I think so. I think they could be the underdog. Like, I think we all talk about Mahindra. Like, I always talk about Mahindra being that underdog, being that team that will sneak in unheard of, against these big OEMs, like, as you say, Porsche, Mercedes, Audi, the list goes on, BMW. But, Venturi, if they keep going the way they're going, they'll challenge Mahindra for that spot of, well, if you're not going to pick up the pieces, then we will. So, Mahindra might have a bit of a battle because Mahindra have held that sort of best of the rest sort of title for a long time, or the best of the smaller teams. And, Venturi, could easily come and snatch that away from them.
Although calling Mahindra a small team is an understatement. They're a huge major manufacturer in India. They don't seem too big to us Europeans, but Mahindra is a big-ass team.
It is a big team. Like, I'm not going to deny that at all. But when you're talking the Mahindra against the likes, I know because they're less well known, you are expecting BMW, Audi,
sure,
Jaguar, to beat Mahindra, right? And I've said it to Dilbag so many times. Like, is Formula E the way that Mahindra promotes itself to the rest of the world? Could we see Mahindra's, in Europe as one of the electric cars that you can buy? And Dilbag's like, it's not really a question for me to answer, and I appreciate him saying that. But at the same time, deep down in his heart, he would love that to happen. He would love that Mahindra would be able to break into the European market with a car and actually sell cars in Europe, because they don't really at the moment. So, it is a big company, but I still think that we talk about them in this underdog, story, because I think it is an underdog story for a little time. Well, they're not little in India, but an unknown manufacturer to the rest of the world coming in, and all you start hearing, because it's massive, it's marketing at the same time, like when you have Formula 1 with Mercedes winning the race. If more people are now starting to watch Formula E, and if Mahindra were to start, gathering momentum and actually like picking off wins and picking off podiums like they have been doing, then more people will be like, oh, Mahindra seem to know how to make an electric car. Maybe we can buy a Mahindra one day. And, Mahindra need to obviously do something with that. It doesn't make sense from me as a personal standpoint. I know this is like a mini tangent. Like, going into a world championship as it will be from next year, and not use that as a way to say, look at us, we're a manufacturer, we sell cars. Why not think when you're buying your next electric car, buy Mahindra? So, if Mahindra were to be one of the best cars and they produced a good car, I know I'd be happy to buy a Mahindra at this rate. But they've got to get in the market space for that.
Win on Saturday, sell on Monday, right?
Yeah.
In fairness, though, Mahindra also was very good in qualifying, weren't they? Pascal Wehrlein making Super Pole, qualifying fourth.
Yep, qualified P3.
3?
It was a good day for Mahindra.
I think he qualified fourth.
Yeah, qualified P3, so it ended at Super Pole in third. Yeah.
Okay. I think he ended in fourth, but doesn't matter.
No,
Top
I've got
five.
Massa in fourth.
Top.
I've got Massa in fourth. What my sheet here that says from the official
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Massa fourth.
My sheet's wrong. Yeah. They qualified
Lovely.
at the same time, and
yes, they did.
Wehrlein set his lap
Wehrlein
before Massa
first.
did.
Yeah. So that's why.
That's why. That was fun as well.
But D'Ambrosio could have he had that problem, obviously, coming out of the final hairpin on his lap.
He's just so unlucky, this guy. I've spoken to him in, when was it, October, I think, or September, when Mahindra launched their car, and he was ready for the year, and he saw what Mahindra could be capable of. Remember, Mahindra restructured their entire operation over the summer. They hired lots of people from Campos, and then kind of also split up with Campos, so they had a relationship before that, and Campos was pretty much running their trackside operations, and Campos obviously being Spanish, Mahindra working from their factories in the UK and having political influence from India, just some on the way between all these 3 points all around the globe. Well, efficiency in the workforce just disappear, and Mahindra felt the need to split from Campos, but then hire lots of engineers from Campos, so that now Mahindra Racing is a Mahindra-only run operation. Still a lot of Spanish engineers within the team, but they're all now employed by Mahindra, and the team underwent a major restructuring process in the summer, and Jerome was ready when I spoke to him. He was... I mean, he didn't... Of course, he always tried to squeeze out of the drivers a bit of, well, can you win this year or anything? But he didn't want to talk to me about winning, but he was ready and ambitious. And now he has all of this bad luck. Remember in Saudi, when he didn't make the start with the issue getting off the line. Now in qualifying in Santiago, his drive shaft or somewhere in the transmission, something broke. And him not making it into the top 10. He started the race from P20. And spoiler alert, finished the race in P18. That wasn't great either. He's got so much bad luck, and at the same time, Pascal Wehrlein is having all of it. He's qualified in P3, made up, spoiler alert, a place going into turn 1, and ran second for a couple of laps. Finished the race in P4. So yeah, Pascal is at the moment having all of the luck of Mahindra, and Jerome's having none of it.
Yeah, it's sad because I know we've talked about qualifying for a long time, but he was on course. He was lapping quickly as well. He could have squeezed it into Super Bowl, easily squeezed it into the top 10. And it could have been, a different race for Mahindra and a different race for Jerome D'Ambrosio. Just to wrap up Mahindra in terms of where you said they finished with Pascal Wehrlein being fourth in the end. He said that was basically the maximum they could do, and he said with all the sort of changes that's gone through the team, it's just they're still getting used to their new powertrain and just trying to make it as efficient as possible. So he said fourth was probably the best that they could achieve. It was great that he was able to get up into second, but he knew as soon as he got there, he was defending for his life. So on that little segue, we'll sort of move in to the E-Prix section, the actual race section, and actually begin to digest 45 minutes plus 1 lap of mayhem.
Crucially, plus 1 lap.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. Maybe at the race start, but so much happened. Evans on pole position. We didn't mention Evans all episode so far.
No, we didn't.
Mitch Evans qualified on pole, by the way.
Yeah.
Got off the line
Maxi
reasonably
Gunther
well.
second, Wehrlein third, Massa was fourth, Turvey amazing in fifth, and your top 6 was rounded out by Sebastian Buemi.
There we have it.
But here we go, race time. I'm ready. I don't have my race boots on, but I'm ready.
Well, so Evans got off the line reasonably well. Guenther obviously starting. Well, he started on the inside going into turn 1, which sounds.
So people were thinking that he might have a good chance of actually being in the lead come.
That's right, yeah.
Come turn 1.
But keep in mind, the inside is where all the dust is, and that's the dirty side of the road, because the driver, obviously, the final corner on the circuit is a left-hander, so you swing out to the right-hand side of the road, and then you turn left for the first corner, which also is a left-hander. So all the grip is on the right-hand side of the road, and that's where both Evans and Wehrlein started. Guenther having, well, theoretically the better line into turn 1, but practically having worse grip. And that meant he lost out to Pascal Wehrlein. So going out of the first couple of corners, it was Evans ahead of Wehrlein, ahead of Guenther.
Yeah, you know what? The circuit layout reminds me a little bit of Montreal, where in terms of where Wehrlein was.
I was thinking the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of had that sort of left, and then it sort of dipped into the right. So it allowed the people who were on the outside, like the Wehrlein, this is basically how he got the move done, because then he was round the outside going into turn 1, but then he had the inside for the turn 2, just like at Montreal at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. So that's how he was able to get the move done, because obviously he's got the better grip, so he's side by side basically going into turn 1, and then he's able to then carry that momentum through turn 1 into turn 2, where he then has the inside, so he can push Guenther away, and off he goes, and he secured second. But what I want to talk about next, I want to talk about the midfield and our former championship leader, Alexander Sims, because I just think he qualified 15th, obviously a great qualifying in Diriyah last time out, but didn't start 2020 on the right foot, because he was obviously down in the mid-pack, and he was just on a mission way too early. It was like a 5-minute sprint race lobby on like F1 2019 online or something like that. Because, great, what fantastic move he did then round turn 9 to get past Lotterer and tried to get also past Niljani. And then he decided on the first lap to try and dive bomb 4 drivers down the inside.
Well, it
into
worked.
The hairpin of turn 10. And of course, it ended in disaster. Because he banged in, I think he banged into Da Costa, because that's where Da Costa said, that's my steering was never straight after that collision with Sims at the beginning of turn 10. So he picked up damage, and Sims had already picked up damage, because then going down the start-finish straight, he was smoking along the floor, so obviously there was something broken. And then about a lap or 2 later, he's falling down, he's plummeting down the field, and he causes the first full course yellow and had to retire. I just felt like from Sims, it was just far too aggressive to start the race. Like, you don't want it. It's so easy in Formula E to get picked off in the midfield, and that's why it's so dangerous. And it's one of the reasons why I don't like, the only grime I really have with the qualifying system is that, yes, it puts them in the midfield, but then, for no reason you want these championship drivers to be in the race and then taken out by something that's happened in the midfield crashing. But I suppose that's part of Formula E. But I just felt it was too aggressive.
He was aggressive, yeah. I wouldn't say too aggressive. Luck favours the bold. Is that how the saying goes?
Or luck favours the brave.
The brave or the bold, doesn't matter. Both of them.
Same thing.
Same thing. And didn't work out for him. I think the team said he had to park the car after he made contact with the wall. Did he make contact with the wall?
I think, he made contact with everyone, because so I wouldn't put a wall past it, because you have to remember then a couple of laps later he was Lotterer managed to pass. Lotterer tapped him going into turn 2, and then he was fighting Lotterer, and they literally bashed into the side of each other at turn 3. And so he might have hit a wall in there somewhere as well. But yeah, from what all the video evidence shows of the race highlights, is that he just basically took a bit of paint work off every car he was racing against.
He wanted a nice colourful rainbow livery. Yeah.
The blue, black, white, purple wasn't enough.
Yeah. You wanted some of the red, white, and black as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted a bit of everything. Then he covered all colour bases. He's got a bit of every car on there, multicultural.
Yeah, I think Sims in the first couple of minutes was a great symbol for the rest of the race and how it all turned out. Formula E sometimes feels like a bit of a touring car race, doesn't it?
Yes, that's how I described it. I described it in my race report. Well, I don't think it was in my race report, but as a tweet. I think I definitely mentioned it in the e-notes. It was just an old-fashioned touring car race where it was just grit and everything was just bang, get out the way, bang, get out the way. Also a demolition derby. You could also
No,
go that
touring
far.
car race, not demolition derby.
But
because
but a mad touring car race for sure.
that's one of the major differences between Formula E and any other single-seater championship, in my impression. Not only, of course, that they are powered by electric power, but the cars are designed to withstand some degree of contact. And Formula E, or let's put it this way, Gen 2 of Formula E is designed to be a contact sport. And Sims took that a bit too literally, I feel. But still, the scrappy race we've seen in Santiago, that's really what the cars were made for. They're not this fragile delicate design like we see in F1. Formula E cars are designed to withstand some degree of contact, and that's why we see such scrappy races.
I know, but it literally was just incident after incident after incident. Because the next big one really was Oliver Rowland. Again, turn 10 provided I think it's the one thing with hairpins is that you do get that last ditch, move down the inside. And Oliver Rowland tried it on Daniel Abt and it didn't work. He hit Abt, hit Bird. Bird was sent spinning. Rowland completely damaged his front wing, and that exploded and cascaded across the start-finish straight. So What did you make of that sort of collision with Rowland, Abt, and Bird?
Rowland's the one to blame for all of that happened. Bit ambitious, just like we've seen with Alex Sims in the first couple of laps. He tried to make a move on, I think it was Daniel Abt he tried to make the move on, but made contact with the Audi, who then got shoved into the car of Sam Bird, which caused Bird to spin, lose out.
Poor Bird.
Poor Bird, yeah. Just the innocent bystander in that case. And yeah, he's just poor Bird. And also poor Nico Müller, because he was the one getting held up by everything that happened there. He came to a full stop and had to wait until Bird had his car turned round and he reversed back onto the circuit, and Müller had to wait all the time. And yeah, poor Nico.
Yeah, I saw that, and the Dragon probably didn't need that sort of bad luck. You want to try and take advantage of that situation, not get completely held up and have your race destroyed by that. But yeah, for Rowland, it was just a shame, really. Completely destroyed his race. Ended up pitting, then came out, got a drive through for that collision. But again, sort of destroyed his race. It's so easy. At the same time, we say how robust these cars are, but at the same time, it's really easy to see how you can just ruin your race by just having a banzai move down at a hairpin. So he sort of lost out massively from that. But two teams. One team that I really want to focus on now that was really moving up the field, and taking advantage of this was Tech Cheetah, because remembering Da Costa, Verne, they had a quiet race to begin with. They started down in 10th and 11th, and they casually just started moving their way, as Tech Cheetah always seemed to do, towards the front of the field.
They had great pace. Oh, words. They had great pace. Arguably the Tech Cheetah is again one of the quickest cars on the grid this year. And, well, they really showed that. In qualifying, of course, suffering because of the group system, and both drivers started outside of, or just inside the top 10, I think. Antonio Felix da Costa started in P10, Jeff P11, and then they made their way to the front, and at some point we're running third and fourth, I think, and that's when all hell broke loose between the two cheaters. Jack, explain why. What happened between the two of them?
Well, basically, Vernon managed to pick up some damage along the way. We don't know where Vernon had picked up this damage, but it could have been anywhere. It could have been Alexander Sims. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that was within the first couple of laps as well. Not because of Alex, but because of... We're always blaming Alex. He
poor Alex.
It was
Alex,
just a bit too much and too ambitious of a move, but he wasn't. Yeah.
I don't even think
kamikaze
Alexander Sims. I think
being
Verne was ahead by the time. I think Alexander Sims just got in the way of Da Costa. I think Verne was a bit further up the road, or that one place up the road. But anyway, Verne had picked up some damage on one of his like end fences, wheel covers, the left-hand side one, I believe it is. And basically that failed. Now, as I said, I mentioned this in the E-Notes episode. Sometimes your front wing's flapping, and we've seen it so many times, Tobias. If you have to think back to Paris with Robin Frines, where it was loose. It was obviously a different type of loose to what John-Eric Verne's was in Santiago. But we've seen drivers get away with slight damage to the front wing and been able to continue. But Jean-Eric Verne, his luck, bit like season 5 at the beginning of the season, it was just not, it was just not there. And it failed running in P3. P4 at the time. I think it was P3 because Evans had dropped back. So, and it just completely failed. It completely failed. It was smoking across the ground. And, he stayed out for 2 laps, and there was a bit of hell breaking loose between him and Da Costa, because Da Costa wanted to get past, because obviously Verne's now slow. And it was a great radio exchange with Da Costa saying, like, this is not what a factory driver does, or a lead driver does. He doesn't just hold up everyone now because he's got a problem, especially when, your teammates, you'd let the teammate through and then maybe try and hold everybody up. But you wouldn't try and, Da Costa lost a lot of time there, and that, could have been one of the reasons why he didn't actually end up winning the race. So, Verne then carried on, and then he managed to break it loose after 2 laps of running around smoking. It came off, and when everyone's like, okay, right, he should be fine now. He's back down to like 5th or 6th, and he's underway. But then he pitted, and I think everyone was surprised, Tobias. Why would he pit at that stage?
I don't know. Maybe there was more damage to the car than we saw from the outside. Obviously, it looked terrible with the front wing scraping along the asphalt, and we were fearing that he might be damaging his tyre as well in doing so. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he
maybe there was low pressure in that tyre, like Dario Franchitti was saying on commentary. It didn't look like it was fully inflated, I must admit, but maybe there was a slow puncture in there, and they obviously decided at the late stage that there was no point in changing the front wing and the wheel, because you're never going to regain that time back.
Yep. But in fairness, I don't know why they retired the car. We will have to ask him about that. No idea. It seems odd. You're right. It seems odd. He had a damaged car and tried to get the front wing off by driving into walls, just like we've seen Pascal Wehrlein do it in Diriyah.
In Diriyah?
That's probably... I don't think he intended to hold up Felix da Costa like he did, because I don't think he just looked into his mirrors when all of that happened in turn 11. But he tried to get the front wing off for 2 laps, then managed to do so, and it might have been the tyre. He might have slit open the tyre in these 2 laps, and the team had to retire the car. But in fairness, no idea. No idea why they had to retire the car.
It makes sense that it was obviously something with the car had obviously gone wrong, because there was no need to bring him in, essentially, unless he got a black and orange flag. But I wouldn't have expected a black and orange flag for his car. So therefore, there must have been some sort of technical issue with the car, or, as you said, some sort of damage with the wheel, because he was being asked to call in, but he didn't go in. Like, they were going to change the front wing. That was the plan. The plan was to change the front wing and get him back out there, but Verne wasn't having any of it, because I think Verne knew, if you change my front wing, I'm out of the points. So what's the point? We might as well just soldier on. But something must have been said. But it's 2 out of 3 races now, Jean-Eric Verne hasn't finished the race, so he's retired of 2 of the first 3 races of the season. And we can't still count him out even at this stage for the title and becoming a triple Formula E champion, because it's that close. But again, it's leaving Verne having to do Verne things towards the end of the season to win the championship.
Yep. We always talk about how consistency is very important in Formula E, because we always see these scrappy races and all sort of things happen in a Formula E race, and it's important to keep scoring points. We're seeing Stoffel van Dorn doing that just right now. 15 points in both Diriyah races, now 8 points scored in Santiago. That's exactly what you have to be doing when you want to win a championship in FE. You don't have to be winning all the races, but you'll have to score in most of the races. And that's what I think Sam Bird said after the race. He had the spin, obviously, and wasn't very competitive as well in the E-Prix, but still managed to squeeze out. I think he finished in 10th and had the fastest lap.
Got the fastest lap, so got 2 points.
So 2 very important points come the end of the year. And, well, Van had now 2 non-scoring races. He scored 4 points in the second Saudi race. I'm not trying to jinx anything, but that could be critical come the end of the year. And as you say, he of course can still turn the ship around, but he will have to do his normal Jev magic towards the end of the year. And I think it'd be more comfortable. Yeah, that's right. That's stressful, and I think it'd be more comfortable if he was scoring consistent points like he's done.
Like he was doing, and like Van Dorn's doing. Like you alluded to it there, Van Dorn's leading this drivers' championship.
He is.
No one would have thought Mercedes would be leading the drivers' championship even after round 1, let alone round 3.
Yeah, he is.
Like it's just incredible, but it's just consistency. But we can't read too much into it. Look at Jerome D'Ambrosio a bit last year. He wasn't winning races. He was just the most consistent driver, and he was in Group 1 and was leading the Drivers' Championship. So consistency is key because it will keep you up there for a long time. You know, Jerome was up there for a long time as, you know, the championship leader in Season 5. So,
but
even Mercedes, and they look like they can continue the consistency. Obviously, I think a bit of bad luck will hit them at some point because it always does in Formula E. But it's huge.
I think Jerome wasn't really that impressive last year. He was the championship leader, of course, because of his win in round 2 in Marrakesh. One of the most impressive drivers last year was Mitch Evans. He only won 1 race in Rome, had 2 second-place finishes, but apart from that, 12 points, 2 points, 8 points, 6, 2 points, 2 non-scoring races, 3 non-scoring races. That's reasonably consistent. Not always great, but always within the top 10. And that meant he finished P5 in the driver standings after the season ended, with a shot at the championship going into the last race. And he started out the year well, with 12 points, 2 points, 6 points in the first 5 races. That's how you keep the championship hopes alive.
Yeah, for sure. Brilliant from Evans as it was last season, but it's just massive. It's just I still feel consistency is massive, but Verne he's got to win races. He's got to win races at some point this season to then, you know, catch up, because as you said, he's only got 4 points. Okay, and now I think Van Dorn's got 38, so you got 34 points to then catch up. That's a race win and a little bit, and everyone else is going to keep scoring points. So, you know, he's forced. His hand's already forced if he wants to win the championship now to win races. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And as we were talking about Mitch Evans, we might as well talk about him, because obviously got the pole and then sort of dominated the early stages of the race, was able to take attack mode and keep the lead, and then a curious decision, maybe a decision that they might think back maybe wasn't the best decision. They decided to take their second attack mode. I can see why they did it, because he could still keep the lead. So he's got the attack mode, he hasn't actually lost the lead of the race, right? So he's sort of defending from the front, you could say. But he sort of just ran out of pace in the middle of the race and didn't really, you know, fell into that gap of the undercut where he did manage to pull away, but then fell back into the undercut or overcut, I think that's the correct phrase for it, with the attack mode, which is eventually what happened. He was then overcut by Guenther and Da Costa.
Yeah, apparently it was a software glitch that quote unquote, left him blind, with him getting no guidance because he overconsumed energy without being able to get information. So he had to just eyeball it, seems like it. Or, I don't know, right-footed, I don't know, or left-footed. Still, something went wrong.
Right-hand it, right paddle it.
Yeah. I don't know what went wrong, but something certainly did. And he was fighting with... I think that's only a saying in German. Fighting...
Say it.
With blunt weapons is the literal translation.
Sounds very German.
That sounds very German. Yeah. But you get the idea.
Yeah, I do. I get the idea. He's fighting one... We have a saying in England where it's one hand tied behind your back. So you're trying to fight, but you've got a hand tied behind your back. You can't use two hands.
Yeah.
And maybe, that was sort of the problem Evans had. Because he said it was basically off the line that he was like, I can't access what I want to access. So he basically had it from the start of the race, which is a bit of a shame. But, the pace sort of dropped off. His energy management, to be fair to him, wasn't atrocious. He was only about 1% more than the likes of Guenther and Da Costa behind and Wehrlein. So it wasn't like he was 3 or 4% ahead. He managed it quite well, but it just wasn't enough. He just ran out of pace. And then, was overtaken by Guenther and Da Costa. And then that set up an epic Formula E type battle for the lead of the race.
Shall we get into it? Into the lead fight.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was. I know it's lifting and coasting. And you could say that the moves that were done were because one's lifting and coasting, but that's the whole point. That's the whole point why we get overtaken in Formula E. And I know some people critique that and say, well, they weren't both flat, and trying to, break as late as they can because one was lifting. But I still felt it was an awesome fight.
It was, yeah. I have no idea, and we've touched on Techeetah before, but I have no idea where their superior pace came from all race. And I had the impression Max Guenther was the only one who was capable of keeping up with Techeetah's pace. Still, Antonio Felix da Costa, now being the only one left for Tobias Techeetah after Jeff retired. Still, he closed in rapidly after he passed Mitch Evans. Reason being him being a bit too ambitious, maybe, with the battery. Not with the energy consumption, but with the temperatures. We've seen temperatures of north of 33 degrees Celsius, I think. So temperature management and thermal efficiency was a key factor this race. Because keep in mind, if you overheat your battery over 72, I think, degrees Celsius it is, if you overheat them, they shut down, and you certainly don't want a battery shut down halfway through the race. That being said, if you attack, you of course put more heat into the battery. So as you're trying to close in on your competition, you're not only trying to save energy because you want to get to the end of the race, but you also have to try to do that without putting too much heat into the battery, which is really it's a walk on the line. And when Antonio Felix da Costa closed in on Guenther, you could see that, or I mean you couldn't see, but you could expect that he was overheating his battery at this point. He asked his team for guidance, in fact, and they were giving him the information, no, you're all right, you can go ahead and attack him. But as soon as Antonio passed Max, the team was telling him to change the regen mode on his steering wheel and cool down the battery, because he was really, really close in fact to overheat the battery completely and shut down his car. And you, as I say, you don't want that to happen. So he had to reduce the pace, reduce the regen, which meant driving a bit slower. And then we had this titanic battle on the last lap of the race, because well, Felix da Costa managed to eke out just a little bit of a gap, but then had to cool down his battery, and Guenther, being the very efficient German he is,
Yep.
yeah, he closed in, and the clock ticked down to 0 seconds just after they crossed the finish line, giving us a brilliant setup for a final lap, a last lap fight to the line for the lead. And who won?
It was the one and only Maxi Gunther. Well, Max Gunther, and don't say Maxi.
Don't say Maxi.
Okay.
I've been saying
That's
it
a fine
all
of like
year
10
last
euros,
year.
I
I've
think.
been saying it all year last year. I've spoken to him before October test, before Valencia testing in season 5, and I was asking him, well, how do your friends call you? And he said, well, in writing, we've agreed PR stuff, that's all Maximillian, but yeah, call me Max. And then Jack Nicholls started calling him Maxi for whatever reason.
And then everyone started calling him Maxi because that's what Jack Nicholls does.
Trendsetter.
Commentators, they got a big power. They've got powers.
Yeah, but
because it's true. Like, it's true. They say one way, and then people start saying it that way. And you're like, that's not right.
even me, I'm saying Guenther for parts of my life. He's called Maximillian Gunther, but that sounds just wrong speaking English. So he's Max Guenther to me.
Yeah, and there's another question I've got here. Now, this won't affect like the listeners, but maybe you've seen it in articles, and it confuses me massively. His name spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah? Why? I see it. It's on formulary. This is how crazy it is, his spelling, right? Formulary, spell it Gunther. On the live timings, on the graphics, in their little document, they write their race report Gun. Where'd the E finally come from?
Okay.
I don't get it. On his race overalls, it's Gunther. So that's how you spell his name. So that's how you write his name. Where does the E come from?
Well, here's the thing. If the U in his name, in fact, is one of the umlauts.
Yeah. Well,
so it's an U, not a U. Or the German U is U, and the U with the funny dots over it is U. So he's Max Guenther.
We should have started the podcast with this.
The language, the Formula E language podcast. So his real German phonetic name is Max Guenther. However, as the English language doesn't have the U with the funny dots over it, you can either go for just the U without the dots, or take the alternative spelling, which is UE. And Germans do that as well. If you have these crossword puzzles, for example, and you're searching for the word Gunther, for example, often you're not allowed to put in the umlauts. There's also an O with the funny dots over it, and the U, and the A. As an alternative way of spelling, you could just put A-E, O-E, or U-E. So that's where the U-E in his name and the timing comes from. Any way is right, pretty much.
Yeah.
To have his name completely correctly, it would be U with the dots over the U. Alternatively, in German, you could use UE, or just go for the English spelling of GU. And I don't think he minds any of those spellings. I have it easy as a German journalist. I have the umlaut U on my keyboard, and I can always write Max Guenther with the U and the dots over it.
Yeah, I wrote Max Guenther with Unther, obviously no dots on the top, and I was really annoyed when one of the editors changed it to UE. I was like, no, that's not his name. If you read his overalls, it says Guenther, Gunther. So where's the E? I understand it. It's crazy. Imagine having like 3 different alternatives of your name, how to spell your name. It's crazy. But just getting back again, love our tangents. Getting back to the Da Costa fight, I really felt that Cheetah decided, you know what? Let's just manage this race from the front. Let's get Da Costa to the lead of the race. Forget battery temps. Just get there. Just get to the front. And he did. And it nearly worked because he was 2 corners away. You can't forget this. He was 2 corners away from winning the race. So I felt like when I was watching it and sort of analysing it, I was like, maybe they thought, you know what, just go for it. Just get him. Just get the pass done and then don't let him pass. Manage the energy. Sit on the brakes, on the apexes as much as you can. Don't let him pass. Obviously, it's easier said than done. Yeah, it's not like street tracks, like, say, it probably would have worked in Monaco, even if he could have maybe have got past in Monaco. But I think that sounded to me like the strategy that they were going for. It was sort of a do or die, get past him, manage it from the front, and you never know, we might win. So, because I know Da Costa says that maybe I could have managed the race differently and then been behind him on the last lap, ready to attack. But I reckon Guenther would have had him. I think then Guenther would have still had a good battery temperature and would have been able to manage the energy and the pace to make sure Da Costa didn't get past. Because I think there's many different scenarios you can look at it of how he actually could have got past Guenther if he hadn't gone past when he did. But I think you're still giving Guenther the assertiveness in terms of, well, I can do this because I'm not in danger here. I've managed my car fine. So I feel like it was just an all-out attack and then defend at all costs and see what happened from Tech Cheetah.
Yep. It takes something special to win in any racing series, but especially in Formula E, I guess. And that's what they tried. Almost worked, as you rightly point out, but it didn't because Max went past him in turn 8 or turn 9, kind of, still in turn 8 and then sort of braking for turn 9 he completed it. And, well, good on him. With three corners to go, making a move for the lead and then going on to win his first ever Formula E race. I think there are worse ways to become the youngest ever race-winning driver in Formula E.
Yeah, for sure. It was a great race. It was nuts. But, yeah, what a great way to win it. You know, it was edge of the seat stuff. You didn't know what was going to happen. You knew turn 9, that was probably where it was going to happen. And it did. And you got to give full credit to Guenther because, you know, he's still fairly inexperienced. I know he's got, you could say half a season and a bit under his belt. So, yeah, it was a great win because obviously Da Costa's been here since season 1, so he'll know how to manage a battery. And in those temperatures, Guenther was able to do it and able to do it correctly and enough to win the race. Because, you know, it doesn't matter, old-fashioned motorsport saying, it doesn't matter when you sort of pass for the leaders as long as who finishes first. Yep. So it doesn't matter if you do it the last corner or the corner at the first lap. You know, as long as you win the race, it doesn't matter. So for Guenther, I thought it was a fantastic drive. And I think, you know, I was a bit surprised in commentary where Jack Nicholls sort of said, you know, not much people were surprised by the signing. I don't think I was surprised by the signing. I think he's a good driver and he's a good talent. And you have to remember in testing, he was strong in testing. I know it's a completely different environment. But he's brought that into you know, round 1, 2 and 3 so far. So, you know, the BMW is a good car, and if Guenther can able to pick up some pieces, he's going to be a championship contender this season.
I find it really impressive how he developed in these last 12 months. And I tweeted about it over the weekend. Some of you might have seen it. Follow me at Toby Tweetings. I tweeted about it over the weekend.
Nice plug.
It was a kind of a redemption story for him. He was more or less inexplicably sidelined and benched by Dragon after the Santiago E-Prix last year, being replaced by Felipe Nasr, who was just as unsuccessful as he was pointless after 3 races. Then Dragon put Max back into the car, and he surprised everyone with a top 5 qualifying, I think, result in Rome when he returned.
Yep.
And now fast forward from that time he was benched by Jay Penske. Fast forward 12 months, now he's a Formula E race winner as a factory driver for BMW, one of the biggest German car manufacturers out there. Way to go, son. Brilliant stuff.
It was brilliant. Brilliant. And 74 likes that tweet got, and 13 retweets, one of them from us, obviously. But only one person replied, and it was actually quite a good tweet. So I think more people needed to reply, and probably some more retweets as well. I think that's everything for this podcast. It was brilliant. Obviously, a crazy race. Tobias, thank you so much for coming on and sharing it with me.
Thanks for having me on once again.
And thank you so much for everyone who's listening, commenting, favoriting, liking, doing whatever you need to do on all the socials to keep the podcast going to as many people. The audience figures are growing every podcast that we're doing, and it's great to see. It's great to see the feedback. Obviously, if there's anything that you want us to improve, or tell us what you'd like to see, always let us know. We're always open to any feedback. But thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon.
See ya.